Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're watching or listening. My name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. For this lecture, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be providing another installation into our series on Algernon Sidney's Discourses Concerning Government. We'll be going on to Chapter 1, Section 5. So if you haven't gone back and watched the previous sections, I would highly encourage you to do so, because while this isn't necessarily a verbatim foundational document, Algernon Sidney, all of his works were frequently cited by the founding generation. He was a pivotal, influential thinker for the founding generation whenever they went about writing, I was about to say writing, drafting documents such as the U.S. Declaration of Independence, the Articles of the Confederation, the U.S. Constitution, and even the state or the respective state constitution. So understanding this gentleman's work, specifically the Discourses Concerning Government, is going to be greatly to your benefit in understanding Western jurisprudence. So let's go ahead and jump on over to Discourses Concerning Government. Like I said, we're going on to Section 5. This is going to be a very quick lecture because while Section 4 is about 4 or 5 pages, most of that is him reiterating with examples exactly how Filmer is just blatantly wrong in his book Patriarcha, or in his dissertation, whatever you'd like to call it, Patriarcha. In fact, this summary at the top pretty well explains perfectly, completely encompasses exactly what Mr. Sidney discusses in Section 5, which is why it's highlighted. The summary for Section 5 is: to depend upon the will of a man, is slavery. And he starts off with a very blatant, not just refutation, but a declaration, a de facto, irrefutable observation of what natural law provides for. He says this, so he's referring to a quote from Mr. Filmer, where Mr. Filmer supposes that it is a blessing to be a subject of a monarch. Here's what Mr. Sidney says: this, as he thinks, is farther sweetened by asserting that he doth not inquire what the rights of a people are, but from whence, not considering that whilst he denies they can proceed from the laws of natural liberty or any other root than the grace and bounty of the prince, he declares they can have none at all. Liberty is what he's referring to. For as liberty solely consists in an independency upon the will of another, and by the name of slave we understand a man who can neither dispose of his person nor goods, but enjoys all at the will of his master, there is no such thing in nature as a slave. A direct refutation, of course, and then here is a slew of examples where Mr. Sidney dismantles Filmer's argument, where he says, well, here was this time, here was this kingdom, here was this government, and all of them that applied your ideas, your subjection, your subjugation principle and framework, hated their governments, were despised their governments, and that all of these other governments that were to the contrary, who despised the subjugation, who had governments composed of words rather than commands, they were appreciated, lasted longer, and produced happier civilizations. He says, he that oppugns the public liberty overthrows his own, and is guilty of the most brutish of all follies, whilst he arrogates to himself that which he denies to all men. If you choose to surrender your own liberty, fine. That is your will. But to suggest that by any implication that is provided for or a mandate in the natural law it's brutish, the most brutish of all follies, as Mr. Sidney says here. And he says to propagate this idea, of course, not only subjugates yourself, but renders your fellow man susceptible to subjugation, which your fellow man may or may not contend for. So here he provides more examples where Fillmore had offered this idea that, yes, one, it's a blessing to be subjected to a monarch, but two, that the relationship between a monarch and his people are reciprocal. That when a king is happy, the people are happy, and when the people are happy, the king will be happy. So Sidney has this in response. He says, why did the Syracusans destroy the tyranny of Dionysus, which he was not willing to leave, till he was pulled out by the heels? How could Nero think of burning Rome? Or why did Caligula wish the people had but one neck, that he might strike it off at one blow, if their welfare was thus reciprocal? And it's not enough. So here's his prediction of what Fillmore and his ilk would offer as a refutation. Sidney predicts, it is not enough to say these were wicked or madmen. That these circumstances were not just a few among millions. He says, for other princes may be so also. And there may be the same reason of differing from them. So it's not an excuse to say, oh, well, Nero was just crazy. Oh, Caligula was the exception. Oh, let's see, what was another one that he referenced? Dionysus was just a madman. That's not a sufficient answer, because other princes, given they have the same powers as someone like Nero, as someone like Dionysus, could very well exercise those same destructive powers and prove yet again, time and time and time, add to the infinitely growing list of princes turned tyrant, proving to the contrary of what Mr. Fillmore is supposing, that presumptuously there is a reciprocal relationship between the governed and the governing, when in fact the governed always, prescribed by natural law, determine the structure of the governing, sure, but also when and why that governing is to be completely abolished, is completely to be reformed. And Fillmore argued to the contrary of that, continues to argue to the contrary of that. And Sidney, with those examples, makes very evident that Mr. Fillmore's ideas, that his theories simply do not stand, simply do not hold up to scrutiny, excuse me, when interwoven or compared with natural law, with what is observed and self-evident by the behaviors of man. Excellent. So I said it was going to be a very, very short lecture because Mr. Sidney made pretty simple the message that he was looking to convey with that section. I, of course, would always encourage you to go and read through that whole section, just because having those examples in the back of your mind are going to be greatly to your benefit. Of course, I didn't read through them here because I want to keep this as brief as possible, because not necessarily the important information, but the information that is going to be most readily and instantly beneficial to you is what I try to highlight. But of course, the other information would be a great supplement to your understanding for those principles that I try to highlight and kind of elicit out of these works. So of course, I would always encourage you to read the section in full. But if you have any questions about number section 5, if you have any questions about section 5, go ahead and post them down in the comments. If you have any questions about what was said in the preceding sections, or maybe a topic you'd like me to cover in a future lecture, also post those down in the comments, because the entire purpose of the Calhoun School of Law is to provide you with the necessary skills and information, such as Mr. Sidney's work, that will help you defend against any sort of lawfare that will be waged on you, your loved ones, or your hard-earned property. So please, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them down in the comments. Excellent. So my name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information that plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and if not, while you're down in the comments, go ahead and let me know how I can do better so I can best serve that purpose of helping you. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and I'm not sure what the topic for the next lecture is going to be, but I'll do my best to make it as informative and entertaining as this one, if not more so. regardless of the topic of the next lecture. Until I see y'all then, I bid you all farewell.